assume since
But
nobody said anything, all my audio and stuff like that is good, right? Or at least as good as it normally is.
yeah. But so new laptop, that's exciting.
Yeah. Only it got here so fast. I feels like just yesterday when I ordered it November 7th.
I am I'm assuming everybody is good to go at this point. Everyone's recording.
Yep.
3, 2. All right, there we go.
Cool. That's gonna make it real fun for me to edit that in later, which I will do.
I just try to keep it interesting. I feel like if you just kind of got to sync them and then leave it, it would be boring. So I try my best to make it interesting. Like when I mute on Skype, I just like sputter into the microphone. So you have to mute it.
Yeah, I love using, like 2 minutes from the overall meeting recording and then the rest of it from everyone's individual stuff. So it's really fun to get to splice all that shit together. That being said, hello everyone. This is Jetpack Swords, a casual podcast where we talk about video games or else we want to talk about. I'm Greg, and with me as always are Packy and James. And as Packy somewhat alluded to with his snarky comment about how long it took his laptop to get here, we are at the very end of 2022. We are recording this on December 28th. And so this will be obviously the last one for the new year. Obviously, we started this podcast this year. And this is our 18th episode, I believe, if I looked at the folders correctly. And I don't know. It's pretty crazy that we've actually done this 18 times now. Like that's pretty awesome. I don't know. I love it. And so with all that being said, end of the year, I figured we talk about a few things. Obviously, old year, new year stuff. And then also, I don't know, I somewhat I celebrate Christmas with my family and whatever else. I don't know if you all do much these days, but did you all get any gifts? Did you all receive any gifts that were interesting or notable in any way?
I have a good one that's tangential to gaming. I went and I got the theme this year was getting me stuff that was Super Mario themed because I wanted like graphic tees and stuff like that. And they all were like, oh, like they brainstormed. They're like, oh, Super Mario. Like it's not like because they know I like Smash Bros. And like Super Mario's tangential to that. I have never played a Mario game to completion. They got several different like big Super Mario. Thankfully, I still know significantly more than they do. So I was able to play it off and be like, oh, this is so great and stuff like that. But I was like, oh, to Goodwill you go. You'll wait it out at the bottom of my drawer for a few years, and then I'll feel bad and give you away. But you'll be beautiful. It'll pad the bottom of my drawer so well, though. It'll look good doing it. But yeah, that was long and short of my Christmas. My Christmas was very brief. Though I am getting my PS5 back. I loaned it out now. It's coming back to me in the new year, so I'm very excited with between that and the new laptop. I think I'm going to play a lot of PS5 games and Steam games that I've not been really doing most of this year.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing what you have to say about God of War. Obviously, James has already talked about it somewhat, and so it'll be interesting to hear your perspective on that. James,
I will say that is my thing. Last thing, that is the thing I'm proud of that I managed to get through this year is I have not had any of God of War 2's story spoiled for me yet. Besides what you can see in trailers. And I was so certain. It's going to be even, it's going to be harder and harder, but I'm at the finish line if I can wait it out like another week or two. And I did not think it was possible with how like social media algorithms work. I'm like, I am screwed. I looked up so much God of War lore during the first game to confirm stuff. I thought I was hosed, but somehow managed to get through it.
James, anything notable from you this holiday season?
Nothing from the actual day of. This is probably the year that I've gotten the least amount of actual items ever from family and stuff, which like is fine. It's whatever. My girlfriend, we did our Christmas stuff like 2 weeks ago because she has a hard time buying me things and then just waiting until the actual day of. So she always gives my gifts.
It's because you get so excited. You want to give it.
No, yeah. I know. And I can't remember if I mentioned it already. I think I might have mentioned the last one we did that like I had just gotten it, but she got me a Steam Deck.
Steam Deck, right?
Yeah. Which at that time I had not played much of. I had just like basically turned it on and that was it. With the winter sale on Steam these like last week and a half, I bought a bunch of stuff for it. So I've been playing, let's see, I got Risk of Rain 2, which Packy, I feel like you would like.
Oh, of course, I played it. It's
cool.
so good.
How do you unlock the other characters? I still only have.
It's so annoying. It's the one I think horrible because they don't explain it to you at all.
No,
just Google it. Google it, or you can just auto unlock them through like hacking your save just a little bit, which is incredibly annoying. Unlike other games that just like, hey, level up and then spend a currency, or like do this really clear objective we're going to explain to you. Almost all of them are secrets.
That's so annoying.
Like, I think after the first 3.
I have the 2 that you start with, and then I have the other one they added with the expansion, which is also when you start with like the Railgunner, which the Railgunner is really cool, but like I wanted to try the other 10 characters that are in the game. But yeah, that game's really cool. I played Return of the Obra Dinn, I think it's what it's called, which if you all have not played that I don't know why I slept on it so long. That game is phenomenal. I cannot believe it was made by a single person. It's so good.
It's made by one guy.
It was one guy. It's what the credits say, at least. Like, they had like a localization team for language, but like everything else it says was just him. I don't get it.
In like 2021, I was either early this year or 2021. I remember
it was last year, but
universally adored.
Yeah, which like I was like, I don't know if I thought it was like an adventure game, like classic point and click adventure game is what it like in my brain I thought it was. So I just never played it, and it's on sale. I have it on the Steam Deck. So I was like, sure. And I did it in almost a single playthrough. I did, I think, 2 playthroughs. One that was like, or like 2 like times. One was like 2 hours, and the other one was like 6, and I just burned through it, and it's so good.
What is the gameplay? I know everybody loves it, but I've never heard someone describe it.
Just a first-person environmental exploration game. I don't know if you know what the story is, but just to give a like real brief, basically just the equivalent of like the Steam summary on like the page, because it doesn't spoil anything either. It takes place in like the 1800s, and you are a East India Company insurance appraiser, and a ship goes missing from England going to, I can't remember, somewhere in like the East Indies, and it suddenly reappears like 10 years later, and so the East India Company sends you to like literally just do the most boring account insurance work of to see what happened to it, and becomes more than that, but like not much more. You literally are just there to determine the fate of all 60 of the crew that were on board, and it's super good. It's so good. What else have I done on the Steam Deck? Risk of Rain, Obra Dinn, some Valheim with Jacob and our other friends a little bit yesterday and like a little bit earlier this week. But yeah, Steam Deck.
Was Jacob also playing on his Steam Deck?
I don't know if he was last night, but he has been, because Valheim runs pretty well on the Steam Deck. So
yeah.
I did get this one game that I don't know if you all like were super big into computers. Like, it's honestly a little before our time even, but there used to be a company called Microprose, which was a big publishing company in like the late 80s, early 90s for like kind of military simulation games back when PC gaming was like, that era. And they like died, and then they got brought back as like, I don't know if it's like the same people, but they basically brought back them as a publishing company for relatively small kind of indie, but that same style where they're like realistic or, simulation heavy games. And they're pretty niche, but like whatever. I got one from the Steam sale that I'd had on my wish list forever, and it's like didn't look like it'd be like that fantastic. Definitely like a get on sale kind of game. But it's called Carrier Command 2, and you basically are put on a sci-fi aircraft carrier on a oceanic like archipelago planet, and you have to control the entire thing and take over this like full archipelago of islands. And you know how like when you see like flight simulators or even just like an actual airplane like cockpit, and they've got all the buttons and the switches and they all do things, and then like on really good flight simulators you can actually interact with all of them, and again they all do things. This Carrier Command game has that, but for the bridge of an aircraft carrier, and every single button and switch is modeled and is interactable, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's got a really cool art style,
so extensive.
And it's like
God.
Pretty cool. Like I played for like, I don't know, like the first hour after I bought it on the Steam Deck, which also it's crazy to me that the Steam Deck can run that. Not like, in addition to like a billion other things that it can run, but I was like trying to drive this aircraft carrier through a heavy nighttime storm that was just like procedurally generated, and the waves and like the trenches between them were so massive that the ship died because it like realistically models like currents and wind and everything.
That's
I was like,
awesome.
I don't know what I'm doing. And it's multiplayer, but I obviously don't have anybody to play with because it's so niche, but it's pretty cool. But yeah, mostly Steam Deck.
That sounds pretty sweet, though. Like, I mean, yeah, the flight simulator comparison feels very apt.
Yeah,
obviously, right? Like,
it's very detailed.
That sounds so hard with handheld controls.
It's honestly not bad. I don't like, again, some of the games that have been like, because like there's 3 levels for the Steam Deck. It's either like unsupported at all, either playable where like you can play it, but it'll tell you specifically like what issues it might have from being just playable, but not like perfect for it. And then there's the verified ones where they are supposedly like well made for it in terms of like performance and the controller layout and like the text on the screen not being too small. And yeah, I like all the verified ones I've tried so far, like they all work really well. And like a lot of like big budget, like Elden Ring is a verified Steam Deck game. I don't know how the Steam Deck is able to run Elden Ring like no problem when it's the size of the Switch, but I don't know. It's literally magic to me.
But the size of Elden Ring, they've had some specific optimization, right? Like I bet all the biggest games they've done some specific optimization.
I'm sure they have. I mean, they have to like get them to run, on like low end PC hardware, like anyway, right? Mm-hmm. But like, it's still just crazy to me that you have this portable, vaguely Switch size. Yes, it is bigger than the Switch, but it's still vaguely Switch size, and it runs these things well. Like, again, playing that Carrot Command game, which isn't like that complex of a game, like visually, but like for it to model all the weather and currents and fog and waves, and then for the Switch to not be like a literal furnace in my hand at the same time, it's just, I don't know, it's impressive. I really like
the you had a mental slip there. You literally called it the Switch.
I did call it the Switch. It's all the same. It's all handheld stuff.
No, exactly.
Really
and I
funny
feel like
with that build up of talking about how well optimized it is, and then accidentally call it the Switch.
It's better than the Switch. I've probably played more of the Steam Deck already than I have the Switch. Other than the Switch in dock mode playing Breath of the Wild, which I've played like a good amount of, but at that point you're just playing like a normal console. So
yeah, very fair. So to wrap up the Christmas segment of it, then I did get my only like game related gift or whatever.
I'm so sad people can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll link to it, or maybe I'll if we ever get around to like actually populating
can you post like
the YouTube
pictures
channel.
of episodes? If you can post pictures of episodes, just make it your jacket.
I can set the picture for a specific episode, yeah.
There you go.
But so this jacket is a World of Warcraft bomber jacket, and I got it from my brother Steve, who was actually a guest on our podcast a few episodes ago. To talk about World of Warcraft, obviously. And it's fantastic, and it has these patches for like the different expansions and everything, and it's just like it looks so good. It's so fantastic. I love it. It probably costs way too much money. I don't want to look it up because it would make me sad. And he probably didn't get it on sale or anything, but like, oh, it's so good.
It's a nice looking jacket, right? Like it's just a good quality jacket.
It looks pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the first thing, we did the like kind of standard thing, like, so I didn't go home to see family for Christmas, right? We just shipped presents, and then we just FaceTime day of, and that was the first thing he asked. He was like, does it actually like look or feel like nice, like decent quality? Because that's what he was worried about. He was worried it'd be kind of shoddy or whatever. And no, it so far, very, we're only like 3 days in at this point, right? But 3 days in, it's holding up, and it's great. I love it so much. He asked Susie beforehand, like, oh, do you think Greg would like this? And I was just like, or not I. Susie was like, it's a little much. I'm not sure he'd wear it out in public, But after getting it, I'm like, I definitely wear this to work. And I'm like, I'd probably wear this in public too. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, it's just a nice looking jacket. And like, no one it's just like, oh, it's a jacket with patches on it. Like, you have to know what the things are. And if you know what the fucking things are, then you probably like it anyways. You're like, oh, that's really cool,
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that was my video game Christmas related story. That, and I started The Witcher 3. I think I texted you all that day. And I haven't made it very far, but not because I've already given up on it. In fact, quite the opposite. In my, like hour of playing of it versus my hour of playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I actually have been enjoying The Witcher 3 much more than I enjoyed the hour of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So
I told you, Odyssey's not my favorite.
Maybe I will finish it this time.
It's actually two great games to play side by side to convince you to play The Witcher, because they're incredibly similar, except The Witcher's early plot is way, way better than Odyssey's.
Yeah.
I think like the combat and a lot of the missions differentiate later on. But like early on, they're very, very similar third-person action RPGs. Mm-hmm. But The Witcher just has a way more interesting story.
Yeah, for sure. And so I definitely agree.
So the combat has been a lot better than I remember it being, and I don't know if
what difficulty are you playing on?
So I'm playing on normal, not easy, not hard, normal. And maybe on launch I played on the harder one. To be fair, I've actually died, right? So like I actually don't think normal's like normal's not like I can just press the same button over and over again and like win the game, right? Like you still have to like actually roll out of enemies' attacks. Which is not like it's not hard, right? It's a very good difficulty actually, I feel like. And again, not very far into it, so who knows how this will change with scaling or whatever else. But I'm trying to remember. I feel like I want to say on launch on consoles, The Witcher 3 was probably 30 FPS. And I think the 60 FPS of the current gen update, which is the whole reason I'm picking this back up, I'm giving it another shot is because of this. I think that's probably why the combat feels a lot better than I remember it being. That, and to be fair, I think I looked at when my save file was or whatever, and it was literally from the year at launch, which like I'm probably wrong, but I want to say it's like 2015 or 16 or some shit.
That sounds about right. Yeah,
it's surprisingly old at this point, right? Especially for
people forget it didn't launch very well. Like people had a lot of criticisms for the game when it launched.
Better than Cyberpunk, but it was definitely a little rocky.
It was one of those games where with their first DLC, all of a sudden, like people rediscovered the game and are like, "Oh, this is actually."
Well, to be fair, Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, the two DLCs, are fantastic.
Yeah, I don't consider it to be some of just like the best DLC period ever.
Like they're so much better than the base game.
Specifically, I think Blood and Wine. I think that one's. I mean, I think Heart of Stone also, but I think very specifically, Blood and Wine is definitely regarded as like.
Personal, incredible. Having played both and the base game, and then just like from what I've seen of the general consensus, I think Heart of Stone is regarded as the best story. Like the villain and everything is extremely good, and then I think Blood and Wine's the best everything else because it's got the cool like fantasy France wine making region, and it's really pretty. And as someone personally who I'm not afraid to admit, I love vampire stuff, but not like Twilight, but like monstrous vampire like. The stuff that Witcher has, where there's like human vampires, and then there's like just giant bloodthirsty bats. Like literally, Blood and Wine's all about vampire stuff in that way, and it's got a ton of flavors of it, and it's just really cool. Like I love that stuff. So, but yeah, they're both really good.
Yeah, sadly, like I said, I don't have either of them. Who knows if I actually complete
should do the base
campaign
for sure.
Yeah, if I actually beat the base game, then maybe I'll pick one of those up. Because like I said, so far at least, I have been enjoying it. I think I've probably complained about this before. I hate riding horses in video games. I fucking despise it. I hate it so much. Like
it's really
I got on the horse in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I was like, so it's this game. It's excellent. And like I everyone loves Red Dead Redemption 2. Don't get me wrong.
I do.
I also love Red Dead Redemption 2. But it's another game where it's like, you motherfucker, I don't need to be on this horse for 3 minutes. Like, I understand that, like, these characters are cool, but, like, could you condense their cool interaction from 3 minutes into 30 seconds or something?
I strongly disagree, specifically in Red Dead 1 and 2. I agree in most other games. Red Dead 1 and 2 are, as I probably mentioned before, like, top 3 games for me.
I think horse riding wouldn't matter if you didn't. Like, specifically the dialogue-heavy horse riding, people wouldn't care about if it didn't come immediately after a lot of solo horse riding to get to that point to start the mission to then do it.
Yeah.
I think that's the only complaint. Actually, I think Red Dead 2 becomes so much better once you discover, like, cinematic cam auto takes the horse to wherever you're trying to go, and then I just play on my phone.
That doesn't need to be a thing. Just don't make me sit on the fucking horse for that long. That's what I was going to say, though, is Red Dead is actually the best case of that because it is at least filled with dialogue, right? It is filled with interesting dialogue between the interesting characters that's setting up the mission that you're about to go on, right? It's still longer than I would like, but it is by far and away the best bullshit horse riding in large open world games that are bigger than they fucking need to be for no other reason than they think it sells well. And Assassin's Creed is not that. You're just solo riding a horse for so fucking long because they made the world massive for no reason. And
see, that's how I feel 3 about the ship combat in Odyssey 2. Like, it's not fun ship combat, and because it's the Aegean Islands, it's all you fucking do.
Mm-hmm.
Valhalla at least has interesting ship combat with like river raiding and stuff. God, I like Valhalla a lot. Odyssey, I want to like. I literally have the season pass for it, and I'm never gonna play the DLC. But it said Atlantis, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'll play that, and I never have gotten close. Sorry, not to interrupt.
As soon as you mentioned the ship combat of Odyssey, that I think was like you texted that, and I was like, oh.
I'm just gonna go try the Witcher 3 ship combat. Like, I love the like gunpowder era ship combat, but I cannot stand the like ancient ramming and arrows. I just don't give a shit. Like, I don't care.
I can appreciate that, like, maybe it's cool and maybe some people like it, but like, it seems really fucking boring, right? Like,
I'd be fine if it was like just missions. It's like, hey, for this like sequence, you're going to be doing this for a little bit, and we're going to like pepper it in throughout the game. That's cool.
Yeah.
But like, have it be set pieces, but don't have it be the main mode to navigate.
God, yeah, no, for sure.
You're not going to like parts of Witcher 3 for that reason, then, just so you know.
No, I'm well aware. Don't worry. That's already super fucking apparent. Like,
there's
hey, this is my best tip I can give anybody going into The Witcher 3. Don't be a completionist with the question marks off in the water.
Do what you want to do.
I am only doing main quests. I'm not doing a single side quest, which I realize so many people are like,
no, there are good side quests, though.
It has the best side quest of any game ever! And like, I don't care. It's too fucking long in the first place. I don't need another 50 hours of bullshit. Like,
do the main story, get invested enough, and then you can pick and choose what stuff you want to do after that.
Yeah.
Do not try to do don't do White Orchard at the beginning and try to do every single question mark in that first open area that it gives
I think
you.
It's that, right? Like, I think exploring the quests is good, but like the usual, hey, go hit every question mark or like every unseen whatever in the area, that is just not a good strategy in The Witcher.
Like,
it's not rewarded
I did that
well.
by the end when I was just like, I like playing this game now. I want to see what else the world has to offer. And like me personally, I love games that have like codex entries and stuff. And obviously The Witcher has that for all of like the monsters and everything, which I love that stuff. Like, as someone who likes world building, that's so cool to me. And so like, I did the quest just to get more of the like bestiary filled out.
Yeah, that's cool.
I will just remember always one of my roommates in college was a big completionist in all the games he would play. Like, he would 100% them almost every single time. And he played The Witcher 3. And I did not watch most of the interesting part of the game. What I distinctly remember was sitting out, hanging in his room, talking to him while he went around in the boat, going to different question marks to fully complete every single one of them, just getting like useless treasure chests.
Yeah, it's
like little, and he knows it's not going to be interesting or fun when he's going to it, but he does it anyway.
Ugh, it's awful.
That really hurts. I'll say, I mentioned I'm playing it on the normal difficulty, right? And normally what I like to do is I like to play it on the hard, but not like if there's like 4 difficulties, I like to play it on 3, not 4, but 3, right? Harder than normal, easier than the hardest, right? That's normally my sweet spot. With this game specifically, though, I didn't do that because I knew that if I did, I would feel like I would have to do all the like pick every single fucking herb on the planet and like make poisons and all of this stuff. And like, I don't want to do that. Like, I do not want to stop to pick up an herb at all because I already know the game is going to be incredibly long. And I do not want to waste any additional time doing that, quite frankly, I'm assuming bullshit system of the game.
I think,
right?
Honestly, it's not even like you have to do that. It's just games like this, they just scale enemy damage and health, so it just makes the combat longer and punishes you more for making a small mistake during longer fights, which makes you repeat them.
I would say, for Witcher 3 specifically, I think there's definitely like two schools more than a lot of other games. So like me personally, I play games mostly for like the power fantasy of it. So playing as Geralt, who is supposed to be like, a badass monster hunter who's been around the world, I play on like easy or normal, so that way when you go into a bandit camp and the game starts doing the sync kills where you're just chopping arms off and stuff, it makes you just like feel good. Jacob is definitely a play everything on the hardest difficulty.
He's the Dark Souls guy.
Other people, he and other people really like Witcher 3 because they like that you actually have to prepare for fights, which like I totally get that. I like having to think.
I get that
where
too.
You're like, I'm going to be fighting a vampire right now, so I got to put the vampire oil on because that's more immersive because that's what Geralt would be doing. Like that's literally his job. I'm really bad at, like you said, having to like get the supplies ready to then do that, and I don't have the patience. I'm just like power fantasy. I don't even care. Like some of the bosses are still hard. I'll still prepare for them, but in general, I'm just going to tear into these bandits because it's awesome.
Yeah, I wish there was a way to like have the best of both worlds, because that's why I don't play hard, is I don't want to come out of the cutscene and be Geralt and be the badass and then be confronted with 3 bandits and they kick your ass ruined. Because they can like one hit from them insta kills you.
Which,
and
like,
you play that fight 5 times.
Thematically appropriate for the setting too, because like nobody's supposed to be like a full-on hero really in that like fantasy world. Like it's supposed to be grounded as much as it can be, but like still, no, you're right. Like I don't want to be, like you said, in a cutscene and be invincible and then come out of it and you're like, oh, this fucking sucks.
Yeah, just get tossed about.
Yeah.
But then also, like, because that's my dilemmas. I'll always default towards the easier if I'm forced to choose, like, normal or, like that 3 out of 4 or 3 out of 5 difficulty level. But then, I'm disappointed with bosses usually because of that.
I did Fallen Order. I'm doing a second playthrough kind of right now, but when I first played Fallen Order, Jedi Fallen Order, I did the hard ones, like the third option, like Greg said. And for me, that was a good middle ground where it felt kind of Dark Souls-y, but it wasn't blindingly punishing. I'm trying to do a Grandmaster now, which is the hardest, and I fucking hate it, and I'm probably going to drop the difficulty. And that's coming from someone who played hundreds of hours of Elden Ring this year, and I was like, oh, I can do this now. Like, I have that skill set to bring over, and I don't know if it's just because FromSoft makes a different game than Respawn, because like they are pretty close like gameplay wise, but I cannot do it in Jedi Order like the hardest. I can't. So I don't know.
I remember with that one specifically, I started on that difficulty, and then you come to a point on like one of the early planets, and if you're exploring, you come across like a boss guarding a like secrety thing,
the frog,
and yeah. And I'm like, oh, cool. I'll do this. Yeah. Literally could not beat it. And I was like, fuck this, lowering the difficulty. And then also, I think later on in the game, I ended up cranking it back up.
I think that boss is just like a FromSoft boss where it's specifically there to teach you, I don't have to tackle this right now. Like FromSoft games always have a boss like that. Elden Ring specifically has a tree sentinel, which is like a pretty hard boss right at the very beginning of the game that you can just skirt around, but it's there to teach the player you don't have to do every single thing you see. You can come back, like, and it's okay to do that.
There are a lot of really funny videos of people just brute forcing the tree sentinel and spending hours and hours and hours on it. Being like, well, I have to now.
Yeah.
Friend at work is just super random, and maybe I'm not going to link it in like the description unless he's like, oh yeah, that's cool. But he, he's very proud of it. He sent this message. I'm just going to send the title of the video. It's, Millennia no hit with the iron balls. And so he killed the boss in Elden Ring. Melee only, no summons, no buffs.
Not just a boss, and Millennia. Who's the hardest boss in the game.
Wait, what? He killed Millennia?
So he was very with like,
no what's again?
I'll send you all the video.
No hits at all. I did Millennia like getting fucked up, and I did it after she got patched. And he did it, but he did it
He actually did it twice, which is the funny thing too. Is because he said it was actually on Christmas. He was like, I did it. And he's like, what a great Christmas present. And then the next day on the 26th, he was like, hey, here's the video. And so it's just like nice subtle flex that you did it twice. And so I just random shout out. I just thought that was cool. Because he's obviously very proud.
Yeah.
So, this kind of all started with The Witcher. The last thing I'd have to mention there is, thankfully, this is so dumb. Roach is a faster horse than the Assassin's Creed horses. That's the only saving grace so far in that regard. Is it seems to take less time to go from place to place.
I think stuff is just closer together. And there's not just vast open plains of nothingness. It's pretty condensed.
That might be it. I don't know.
The big open world you get to, like, after the first tiny slice of one, it's pretty like, there's a lot of empty space.
That's also true.
I do wish
first zone is tiny, but after that there's a lot.
I do wish you didn't have to go to a fast travel point to fast travel to another point. I wish you could just fast travel to fast travel points.
I agree.
Like, don't break my balls, man. Like, come on. Just give me that little bit. So all that being said, it's the new year. Well, it's not the new year yet. It's, a few days until the new year, until 2023. What does anything stick out for the past year to you all for 2022? Like what are your standout moments?
Moments, or like games, or
whatever.
Definitely think this year for me was characterized by roguelikes. Really the past 2 years, but especially this year, I played and beat a bunch. But I can't think of like a defining one that stood out. That's been the problem with roguelikes. Probably why they're going to go, I have to imagine, start declining, is there's just so many, and people are, for a genre that's supposed to be varied, you can start to see a pattern is clearly forming.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, for roguelike, I would still give like Hades the like top spot for whatever. Just from like a story, like being able to combine the roguelike nature with like this story specifically, which like it's not unique to Hades. Returnal obviously did that also, which I've yet to be able to play because it fucked up on me, but its whole thing is like the lives you have and all that stuff. So, but I think that's cool for sure. I still need to beat Hades. I have not beaten it yet because I'm bad at games.
Do you have it on Steam Deck? Be really fun.
I have it on the Xbox, and I might buy it again, but I probably should just play what I have on the Xbox.
It's definitely good on both.
Yeah, for sure.
I ended up beating it when it was on Game Pass. It was good. So I'm surprised I've been in and you haven't, actually. That's shocking to me.
I'm not good at roguelikes.
I'm not good either. Like, believe me, I'm fucking terrible. It was so rough.
That's why I like Hades, though, is because it's a roguelike, and despite, like, if you die, the story just continues, and you have the character development stuff, which, like, I love that stuff. So, like, to me, it feels less punishing because I get to come back and talk to everybody and, like, build more of the relationships and then go on to the next thing. So, I think it's cool.
It never feels like there's a pointless run. I think it does that better than any other game. Like, you don't come back and feel like, well, I just fucked it, and now I have to start over.
That's the worst. When you mess up and you're like, I just committed like an hour or two and none of it matters now. Like, it's the fucking worst.
I mean, I think we've definitely talked about how frustrating it is when it feels like a game just throws away an hour of your life.
Yeah, like, just respect my time, right?
Yeah, like, it's really shitty. And that's, going back to Witcher. That's why I'm not doing the side quests. But so, James obviously talking a little bit about Hades, but I was also just talking about roguelikes. Any standouts for 2022 for you?
For like just anything again? Just like whatever?
Yeah.
I mean, Elden Ring for me,
even
because
not games related.
That's fair too. I was gonna say Elden Ring for me is still like the best of the best this year for me personally. As someone who has always liked the FromSoft games but was terrible at them, like have done so little
like
in
the
Bloodborne.
Most accessible.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've beaten it. I've never even gotten more than 3 hours into any of the other ones because I just get my face stomped in. But Elden Ring, I've beaten, and I've beaten Millennia, and I've seen like a lot of the game. There's still stuff that I haven't seen, and I've put in 200 hours or whatever. But like, I was trying to think during the Game Awards while me and Jacob were watching it, just like to myself, like what I really wanted to win, because like obviously Horizon is super good, which I need to beat. Elden Ring is super good. God of War is super good. But I was sitting there thinking about it. I was like, which of those three do I want to get like a tattoo of? And it's Elden Ring. So I was like, that has to mean something, like the little, I don't know how much of Elden Ring you all have seen, but like the symbol that the game has of like the golden order of like the gods in that game is like the three it's the Elden Ring is like the three circles interlinked or whatever with like the cross in the middle. And like that symbol, like I think is so cool. And like I don't have a tattoo yet, but I've been thinking more about it the last couple of years, and like that would totally be something that I would get, like just that symbol on its own.
It's pretty cool.
Someone who has not touched the game and was really critical of the George R.R. Martin, I was like, that's just to get money. The world of Elden Ring seems very sick.
Oh, it's so, like, again, as someone who loves world building, it definitely has influenced me. Like, half the world building stuff I've done this year for like my personal use is literally just Elden Ring with a different coat of paint on it, which luckily it's just for me, so it doesn't matter if it's copying. But it's been a lot to me for sure. I don't know, beyond that, I mean, getting the PS5 was cool. I think that was this year, if I remember correctly. Steam Deck is cool. I will say it was a pretty good year.
One thing I think of now that I think of like summing up the year actually makes me think of like why I wanted to participate in the podcast was I was incredibly pessimistic on gaming in general the first half of the year.
I think that's pretty common for sure.
Yeah, like it's the worst part of like game release. Like not many great games.
Yeah, it always
between January and
Horizon.
March.
It tried.
It was the one, right? I think that's part of like almost Sony's strategy. I'm sure they released that game in February for a reason. They didn't expect it to be like one of the biggest performing.
Kind of feel like
yeah, I think they did. But like, so it's typically a low point, and also just in general. Again, I'd started to see the patterns in games, and I think everybody who's been playing games for a long time gets to that point at some point where it's like, I've just seen everything, or like, their games aren't as good as they used to be. They don't hit the same, whatever. So I was playing less. It was actually one of the reasons I really wanted to do the podcast was like, I still want to talk about games, even if I'm playing them less.
Yeah.
But then it kind of started with multiverses. Like I did a complete 180 as games that I repeatedly would say I didn't think were going to be as live up to the hype, like multiverses, more recently WoW.
Yeah.
I think even Ragnarok, I was starting to be a little pessimistic about different things. Like,
I get that for sure.
Overwhelmed expectations have been all so incredibly good. There have been so many. DKO, which we've been playing recently, another game I thought was going to be very like meh.
Yeah.
And it's just been very fun. Like I've just been having more fun with those games.
Definitely surpassed expectations. Yeah.
I think
that was the nice part of the year.
Part of that too, speaking from experience as someone who plays like a lot of games, probably like too much. But I think for me, a lot of it is you just play so much and so you get burned out overall. So like, if you for me, like I try to specifically buy games that are different for each of my, consoles, each of my systems. So like the Switch is for obviously Nintendo games, or before I had the Steam Deck, it was for like smaller indie games. And then now the Steam Deck is for smaller indie games, and like my PC's for my big strategy games, and the PlayStation 5 is for my narrative games, and then the Xbox is for whatever that I want to play that I don't really like feel like maybe paying for, and so I use Game Pass for that. Or, I had Elden Ring on the Xbox first, like I barely played it on the PlayStation. And that helps me, one, use all the things that I actually own, which I sometimes have a problem with, where like I'll have the PS5 my girlfriend got for me, and it's fantastic. But like, if I don't play it, I'm like, well, I'm just letting it sit there. Like, that's fucking stupid. But yeah, just like trying to avoid that burnout, I think helps a lot. And for me, like just sticking to what you're talking about, like I didn't get to a point where I was like super jaded with games, but I definitely had a couple of those like shining moments where you're like, wow, this is not something I expected, and it's like blowing my expectations out of the water. Again, literally, I just did Obra Dinn, and I had seen stuff like Obra Dinn before, but playing that 8-hour just like little playthrough is already the highlights of this year for me. Like I know it's fresh because it just happened, but like I would put that up there with anything else this year, other than like maybe just because of the scope of Elden Ring and like what it's done for me personally. But yeah, like
I should also preface that like anything we say is almost certainly going to fall prey to recency bias.
Yeah, right? Yeah. My memory is fucking terrible.
Yeah, but okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I made a list of things in preparation for posing this question, and some of these are not. And as you all have spoken, I'm going to not even mention some of these. Right, I'm just going to skip over them. One of the things I thought that was really notable about this year was Fortnite introduced no build as a permanent game mode. and I had a blast. I mean, I'm not playing it right now actively, but it's just because there's so many games. But like, that was like, I felt like that was really notable, right? Because it drove a bunch of interest back into the game. Like, I mean, obviously it pulled me back, and it was super fun. Like, I loved Fortnite, bringing no build back. Personally, for me, other notable standouts, again, these are kind of recent, and also we've talked about, I think, probably all these on the podcast because they were notable, right? The full release of Grounded. Loved that game. So happy that finally got its full release. Still need to actually beat it because it was just like a solid, like there's a lot there. And actually, like James, you mentioned, one of the things Jacob likes about The Witcher 3 is that you kind of need to prepare for fights. And that's one of the things I actually like about Grounded.
Yeah.
Right? Like every time something caught us by surprise, we were dead. We never won a fight that we were not prepared for. And it was really satisfying in there.
We were
right?
very good at running away.
Yes.
Very true. Very experienced.
And then, the rest, if I go down this list, Multiverses, obviously we've talked about that. Free to play Warner Brothers DC fighter game. It again, like it actually, kind of surpassed expectations just for like a free to play game, like especially coming after like Nickelodeon All-Star Brawls. Like it was just very good, very fun to play, and very pleasantly surprised with that. In terms of actually not pleasantly surprised and actually underwhelmed, Modern Warfare 2. Obviously, I think there's a lot of hype around Modern Warfare 2 this year, especially by me, but I think in general, right? Just because Modern Warfare 2019 was so successful, right? And then Modern Warfare 2 comes along, and it whelmed, to say the most, right? Like it whelmed, to say the most. It definitely didn't overwhelm by any means. I think DMZ was cool, and so hopefully that'll expand. Something that surpassed my expectations again. And again, it's still early on, but Dragonflight for World of Warcraft.
So good.
It is, right? Like I was really
that was expecting... the number one. I was talking so much trash in the months leading up to it. I was so negative.
It's so good. It's so good. Like, I mean, to be fair, I love all of WoW all the time, right? But there is some WoW that's better than others. And again, not super duper far into it. Actually, I think we're exactly a month into it at this point. Dragonflight seems to be one of the WoWs that's better than the others. It is pretty fucking good. Like, I would strongly recommend, mainly because like it removes it. We're talking about, we've had a whole episode about it basically, and we mentioned it here briefly, respecting time. Dragonflight respects time better than any other WoW expansion to date.
They finally learned. They finally realized. Which it's admittedly, so good. I think they've now accepted, and it just took so long to be like, hold on, we can charge them $15 a month and not expect to be the only game they're playing. And wow. They've like, cracked the code.
And they have alts for that, right? Like if for those people who that they want it to be the only game they play, like Steve, right? Like Steve was like, this is the game I play. Like this is for me. Wow, like I'll pay the $15 a month. I don't care because it's cheaper than going out or whatever, which is very true.
Yeah.
Right. And so like that's what alts are for, right?
Well, we also talked with him about it. Like they do a bunch of, and not a big discussion about WoW, but like they finally realized that people. It's one of the few weirdly sandboxy games left where people don't want the mainline latest content shoved down their throat. They want to be up to date with that. And then go mess about in this massive 20-year-old world game.
Yeah.
And just do every other little thing that they didn't have time to do because they haven't been playing it consistently over those 20 years.
Yeah. So then the other things on my list are God of War, which even though I haven't played, I felt like it was very notable this year, obviously. And James, you've been playing it. And I do look forward to playing it at some point in the future, really either via Steam release or getting my own PS5 or bumming a PS5 off a friend or something. I very much look forward to playing God of War Ragnarok. DKO, as Packy mentioned, truly, literally came out of nowhere. Actually didn't know this thing existed until the day it launched and was just like, oh, this looks kind of interesting. We should give it a go. This is kind of interesting. Let's give it a go. I get a free code, and then they do a free week on Steam or whatever, and so play it, and it's like, holy shit, this is really fun, and we just keep going back to it. And so like, truly a standout in terms of like, not a standout in terms of like being the greatest game ever or anything like that, but a standout in terms of like, it came out of fucking left field and had very low expectations just because standard free to play game, blah, 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 blah. But the moment to moment is really fun. And so like, it feels like a standout in that regard. And then the last thing, which we've already talked about, is obviously Witcher 3, very, beloved game, finally got current gen update. And like I said, I think it makes a difference. I think it truly is better than I remember it, when it came out.
Is that really your last thing? I can't believe neither of us mentioned multiverses that much. I won off.
Oh, did I? I know I mentioned multiverse. I literally mentioned multiverses.
No, you didn't. Wait, am I crazy?
Did I mention multiverses?
I space cadetted. I remember Packy did. I don't think you did.
Yeah, I swear.
I literally did. The audience is just going to be like, wow, you two guys are assholes. You don't listen to Greg at all.
They're going to replay, and they're going to realize that you did not read that part off your card.
Yeah, maybe
I literally mentioned Warner Brothers,
you definitely
DC, free-to-play fighter.
Divine Knockout more than you talked about Multiverse, which is still crazy because we have 10 times more hours still on Multiverses than we do on Divine Knockout.
Absolutely.
And it's still objectively a better game.
I definitely mentioned it, though. I absolutely 100% mentioned it. And the two people who listen to this are going to be like, Greg, you're so vindicated. Those two are dicks, and they didn't listen to you. Just saying, it's going to happen.
You've wasted so much of their time because they're re-listening multiple times to the past 3 minutes of conversation, trying desperately to hear you say that, and then they finally realize you've gaslit them.
So I didn't. That being said, that's 2022. So what about 2023 for you guys, right? Is there anything that you're excited for in 2023? Which obviously release dates and shit gets pushed back all the time. So who knows what's actually right? It's happening.
So because of that, I no longer get I don't even follow upcoming game releases. I'll just see the trailer sometimes when they explode on the internet. I'm like, that'll be cool later, but I don't at all look at the dates and stuff. It just it's only until it's coming out within a month. And so there is one that I see listed on that's coming to Game Pass that I remember seeing. It had to be 4 or 5 years ago when Atomic Heart first showed up.
Oh, yeah, Atomic Hearts has been in development for so fucking long. And now it finally looks like not vaporware. It looks like vaporware for so long.
Dude, it looks like it's going to be good.
I hope it is as good as it looks, because right now it looks like a really cool, pseudo-Soviet Bioshock, and I'm so here for that. It looks great, but
it just has to deliver on its aesthetic, right?
Yeah, literally, that's all it has to do. If it does that, if it's on Game Pass, which it is, and it does that, I'll play the hell out of it. So that comes out February 21st, because I'm looking at a release calendar right now.
Excellent.
I saw it because I was looking at the upcoming Game Pass games, and it was that, and I can't remember what the other one is that's coming out in January, but there's another that's coming out sooner.
Let's see.
That's listed. I know Persona 3 and 4 are coming out in January, and I'm going to have to play.
Coming back, which is going to be sick.
There's one
I don't see anything on here that you would like. That's the thing.
It wasn't a game I would play.
Oh.
It was just coming out. I remember it was the one, they had 2 listed in the Xbox app. I will say Persona 3 and 4 I will play, and many other people, I'm going to be disappointed because they will not have the quality of life features that they added to Persona 5 that made it so popular.
I still need to play Persona 5.
Persona 5 Royale's on Xbox Game Pass. It's good. It's 100 hours, so you won't beat it anytime soon, but it is good.
Speaking of Game Pass, the thing which we've talked about, or at least mentioned many times, the thing I'm most excited for 2023 is figuring out what the fuck is finally going to happen with the Microsoft Activision acquisition. Because if I could, then the second thing I'm most excited for is Diablo 4. And if I could play Diablo 4 for free with Game Pass,
that would be
holy
sick.
Shit, I would be so fucking happy. That's
Zero shot.
Packy's like zero shot.
Goose egg that it happens, but there's no way with the timeline Diablo 4 is on that they by that point will be comfortable enough with their merger where they're going to offer that for free. Also, it's just leaving money on the table.
They have until June 6th as of right now, according to this calendar.
Like it has to close by then. Like it's
which like I said, happen.
There will be no Blizzard games for free in 2023, regardless of if it happens tomorrow.
But so that's what like of all things, that acquisition I think is the most interesting thing, the thing I'm most excited for. Like being able to not get, obviously we already know new CODs wouldn't be on Game Pass because of existing licensing agreements, right? But like old CODs on there, like being able to play through like some of the ones I didn't buy or play zombies with friends on some of those, right? Like that would be super fun. And again, like I want Diablo 4 on Game Pass. And then my inevitable, I'll take the free mount in WoW. That'll come as a Game Pass Ultimate perk because I think I've come to terms that WoW will never be part of Game Pass, but there will be perks for WoW in Game Pass, and I'll take it. So that's definitely the standout for me of all things. Like I have other stuff written down, but like for me personally, I want to know what's going to happen with that acquisition. Like I want it to come to a close one way or the other. James, you said you were looking at a calendar.
Yeah, if you want to hear me ramble for 5 minutes while I scroll through this, then sure. First and foremost, I double checked the release date because I couldn't remember for sure. I knew it was January, but I couldn't remember when. The Last of Us TV show comes out on the 15th, and I'm so excited because, as you all hopefully are aware, Last of Us is like that and Red Dead, the franchise, and The Last of Us franchise are like my two top of all time ever. I'm a pretty basic person.
You're doing Mass Effect dirty. I'm just
saying.
Look,
Mass Effect hasn't had a new release in like 20 years, so I love the Legendary Edition, and I enjoyed Andromeda, but Mass Effect, it was falling off.
They need to learn from Last of Us and just keep re-releasing it.
I mean,
for real though. Like, holy shit! Also,
update which aliens that you're allowed to have sex with.
Speaking of which, actually, there is a rumor that like apparently like Last of Us 2, I think was supposed to get a PS5 update, and then I think like some stuff about that like disappeared, and so now the rumor / belief is instead of being a free thing, they're now going to basically re-release Last of Us 2 for PS5.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, just. The Last of Us Part 1 remake is really good. I'm playing through that right now so me and my girlfriend can get back to Last of Us 2. Because I love The Last of Us. I'll play it no matter what. But
they're so good. It's such a good game. It's such a
good game. There's a reason they get away with it.
But I know. It's not. It's Naughty Dog.
So good.
Naughty Dog has unlimited like blank check from me for eternity.
Mm-hmm.
They made Jak and Daxter. They made Uncharted. They made The Last of Us. I'll do whatever they want. Neil Druckmann can have my wallet. I don't care. I was gonna say, so Last of Us 1, the original, had a multiplayer mode called Factions, which is really cool. It was just like a third person multiplayer like versus in the Last of Us universe, and then it had some like kind of crafting survival like light elements to it to fit the setting. Last of Us 2 did not ship with a analog of that of any kind, right? It's solely a single player experience. And Naughty Dog kept saying that they were going to, like, they had plans for a Factions either remake or a sequel or something along those lines, a multiplayer mode set in the Last of Us universe again. And me and Jacob, especially because we were both invested in like the property, but we kept waiting for them to say that they were just going to like release it later on for Last of Us 2 as like a patch or whatever, or as like an expansion even. But I think it was confirmed earlier this year that they are planning on doing a standalone release. Because like they're basically like the scope kept getting so big for what we wanted to do that it wouldn't have made sense to do an expansion. So if what you're saying is
kind of like a GTA Online type thing, or
so Factions in the first game was just literally like a arena versus mode, like it was maps. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like an open world, which would have been really cool. And that's what I hope. I hope we either get like a way cooler small scale open world, like 12 people in like a block of the city or something with like. I don't want to like oversell my expectations because like I got you got to stay grounded, but it'd be cool if it was like a small scale open world with a lot of detail, fitting Last of Us 2 especially, with like AI elements thrown in too, so like PvE elements. So you've got like the clickers and infected, and then like the regular AI thrown in the middle of that. I think that'd be super cool. But what you mentioned, I had not heard about Last of Us 2 possibly getting a PS5 update, but being re-released as that. If they do that, maybe they'll attach the factions mode to it,
right? Like literally completely unsubstantiated. But like, let's be real, it's gonna happen.
If they did, maybe that's what they're doing too. Is like that'll be the release that gets the factions
launch
mode.
That type of mode with that.
Which in that case, I'd be willing to pay the money for it, like just personally. But that's just me. Enough about
and the rumor was it would be if you had Last of Us 2 on PS4, you'd be able to only pay $10 to get the PS5
which a lot of games
version.
have done that upgrade path, which like I don't think is the worst thing. Like I think I have been prone to this like viewpoint too, but I've been trying to get better about it. The price of games has been pretty much stable for like 20 or 30 years. Like we have been in a sea of inflation. We as a like media population have been, as consumers, have been spoiled. Like the bump from $59.99 to $69.99 one time in like 30 years. I know there was like for a lot of people, probably mostly a minority, but like a lot of people were pissed about that. And like I still look at my wallet with sadness when I have to buy a $70 game, but it's only because we were spoiled for literally decades. Like it's ridiculous that the game that's steady.
I think it's not set enough for like how much games you like get out of each dollar, because like overall is held stagnant on prices. The expectation for how many gameplay hours you had within a game have exploded.
Sure,
like,
which
is not a good thing. I stand by. It's not a good thing.
I was going to say, I think it makes sense for them to raise the price then. One, because they are packing way more content in them. Usually, not always. Usually,
sometimes good, sometimes bad, but they do feel obligated to put it in.
Yes, and then two, obviously on their end as developers and as like studio publishing and everything, the costs I'm sure they deal with in terms of distribution and production and, you know, developing games, especially obviously AAA games, but I'm sure all games deal with it too. It makes sense for them to have to raise prices to keep up with that. Now, if like tomorrow they were like, hey, games are going to be like $100, $120, yeah, that would fucking suck. And I would probably cut back my spending a lot, but like, the $10 bump for, you know, current gen now games, I don't think was that big of a deal. And I like I said, I have to remind myself of it sometimes that like I know it's capitalism and it's stupid, but we are lucky that they have not kept prices consistent with like what they could have been doing, you know, for literally decades. But yeah.
And we've touched on that before, you know, the whole like dollar per hour, and you know, if you compare it to a movie ticket or any, you know, all of those other things, like it is a very, like, you know, like Steve has said, like he's had I think at this point tens of, not tens plural, but at least 10,000 plus hours of WoW. And like WoW is an expensive game with a subscription, right? Like it's not cheap, right? But like again, it's just like the amount of time you get out of it. It is so much cheaper compared to so much other things. And so $70 is very reasonable. And on that note, again, I think we mentioned it a couple weeks ago, but worth mentioning again. You know, there's a big notable holdout. Actually two, CD Projekt Red and Microsoft were two big notable holdouts to the $70 price bump. And let me just go ahead and say, come the end of 2023, when we do this episode next year, every single AAA game will be $70 at release.
Oh, I 100%.
Like Microsoft. Microsoft already said it was going to happen, and as soon as Microsoft does it, every other third-party publisher like CD Projekt Red is going to follow suit. Right?
Yeah, like, absolutely.
Yeah, because there'll be no benefit anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, so by the time this time next year, every single AAA game will be $70 at launch, which will definitely suck, but you know, not really. Right? Like it's still a very reasonable value. Again, I'll still prefer the, you know, 15-hour $40 game instead, you know, like Plague Tale Requiem over the, you know, 60-hour $70 game. Absolutely. Every moment of the day.
It obviously just depends on like the pedigree of the game too. Like I don't know, I can't remember what your all's opinions on Bethesda games are in general, but me, I adore Bethesda's games. I don't think there's anything else on the market that is like them enough to where I'd be like, all right, I'm going to switch or play something else. I'm super excited for Starfield, and I'm totally fine. If that game was 70, 80, I mean, as long as it's like as good as
gotta be 70,
Skyrim or as good as, you know, for me, Fallout 4, and a lot of people aren't as crazy about Fallout 4, but I like it a lot. Like, I would be fine paying a premium for a game that I knew was at least that level of quality, was getting consistent updates like Fallout 4 and Skyrim did with expansions and stuff, and was a Bethesda game, and like was cool in space and basically No Man's Sky with like a Bethesda, you know, mechanics underneath of it. Like, I'm totally fine with that.
And the saving grace there is that game will be $70.
Yeah.
And it'll also be on Game Pass.
Yeah, which that's totally true too,
Which, to be fair, Game Pass eventually it has to go up in price. There's no way it saves $15 for Ultimate.
It absolutely will. But again, for what it's worth, I don't think is like the end of the world. It hurts, right? It stings. And also, like
pro tip: never pay full price for Game Pass. Never pay full price for Gold. Never pay full price for PlayStation Plus. Never do it. It's so if you know you're going to do it for a long period of time, it is so easy to not pay full price for that.
Yeah, there's always good deals to find. Or like they had the thing where you could like upgrade whatever for like $1. I didn't end up doing it.
Game Pass in particular, it's absurd. Go to Costco, go get 3 years of gold from Costco, and then go switch your gold plan to Game Pass Ultimate, and boom, you have 3 years of Game Pass Ultimate for the price of 3 years of gold. And like it's crazy. Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you mentioned obviously Starfield, that's in my list of the notes I took. Redfall as well is another Bethesda
hope
game.
It'll be good. Yeah, hope it'll be good.
I do not. Here's honest to God my feelings. I think it is going to be a Game Pass game. It is a game that I would never buy, ever buy at all. But it'll be on Game Pass, and I can probably convince some friends to play it, and it'll be fun to play.
Yeah,
I will be honest. I don't remember this game at all. What is this?
It was kind of forgettable.
Sorry. Isn't it kind of like the Crytek game that I can't remember the name of? Oh God, The Hunt, maybe? Isn't it kind of the Huntish?
I thought Redfall was supposed to be more like a Left 4 Dead. See, that's the thing. None of us even know what we're talking about. I thought it was going to be more like a Left 4 Dead, but with like vampire stuff.
I think that's probably accurate. And then there's heroes, right? Like I believe there are hero classes type
FPS.
thing. Yeah.
It is from Arcane, which means I will give it all the benefit of the doubt because I adore
It's made
Arcane.
by the people who made Dishonored, and that game looks sick.
Prey. Yeah. And Prey is if you have not played Prey,
and Prey. People love Prey.
Prey's really
it'll be good. And like I am looking forward to playing that game on Game Pass because
100%. And if it's I'll give Arcane all the money
like that.
That's fair. If I go down my list, unless James, did you have something off the top of your head?
I was just gonna literally do what you were about to do. So I'll just do mine real quick, and then we can do yours too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dead Space. I adore the original trilogy, so that'll be cool to get the remake here in a couple weeks. What else was on here? That's January. February has Atomic Heart, which we were saying we both hope is good. I like the Company of Heroes games for like real-time tactics strategy games on the computer. Company of Heroes 3 comes out late February, so like that would be pretty cool. Also the same day as that, we're getting Sons of the Forest, which if you've not played The Forest, I highly recommend it. One of my most fun gaming experience this year was playing that with Jacob and our friend Jordy. Just like the brief 3 days that we continuously played The Forest was so much fun.
And we talk about that for those who are interested. We talk about that a little in our episode we talk about survival crafting games. Great episode. If you haven't listened to it, definitely go listen to it. I think it's episode 4
or 5, 6, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's episode 4. So if you're interested in that, go listen to episode 4 of this.
Lightfall, the Destiny 2 expansion, comes out in February, so I'll probably get sucked back in for that.
It's always going to be so good.
I'm the worst. The new Jedi Survivor game comes out in March, which will be fantastic.
So much
Hogwarts Legacy comes out February?
Yeah, really soon. I'm starting to really start to see the ads.
Yeah, it's definitely got a big
they're ramping up the marketing push for sure.
Yep.
That game is going to sell like hotcakes. It's either going to be really good or incredibly average.
I think it's going to be incredibly average. I think it's going to be incredibly average.
I think it'll be serviceable, but not like blindingly good or anything. But I mean, like that's fine.
I hope I'm wrong. To be fair, I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Diablo 4, June. Yeah, there's a lot.
Fucking love it.
Honestly, this coming year, there is a lot of stuff. There's a ton in the to be announced release date, like Armored Core, obviously. The new Assassin's Creed Mirage is coming out.
Yep.
We're supposed to, I think, get a Call of Duty either I've heard it's called an expansion or like a standalone. I don't know. I've heard it called both. So I don't know what it's going to end up being, but whatever it is.
There's just a lot of hesitancy there about if they're actually going to take a break or not. And then that combined with the acquisition and what that means.
Yeah,
and et cetera,
it's going to be a mess, and it's probably going to be underwhelming.
It's very unclear.
No way it's good.
Stalker 2 might be coming out this year, which is exciting. Yeah, there's a lot that is currently planned for 2023, so I think it'll be a good year for games, hopefully.
So what I'm surprised neither of you mentioned, and I could be wrong about this being next year, but this will affect you all more than me directly because I don't have a PS5 at the moment. Isn't Spider-Man 2 supposed to come out next year?
Yes, I
believe
wow,
so. It is supposed to. 100%.
Yeah.
I think it
that'll be exciting.
Get a release date.
Again, I try not to get attached. It truly, I love being surprised when they are like, hey, it's coming out in a month, and we know we're not backing down.
So then, if
fall 2023, it could easily be 2024.
Oh, absolutely,
absolutely. Which is,
but let's pretend it is
great.
Let's pretend it is 2023. Then you know what might be 2024 is also a shout out to what I think is exciting about next year. Again, not for me personally, but I think it's cool, even though I won't be buying it. PSVR 2 is supposed to launch next year, early next year, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
And I am really excited to see what happens with that, how that affects, the VR medium as a whole. And I know, obviously, there's going to be a Horizon game for it.
Yes.
And I could absolutely see there being a Spider-Man 2 PSVR 2 game at some point, right? And so I think that's on my list of interesting things about 2023 is PSVR 2. You mentioned Diablo 4 already. Isn't Legend of Zelda supposed to come out again? I probably won't play it, but I feel like that's extremely notable. Obviously,
May 12th.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
In the same month as the new Suicide Squad game, which had a really cool trailer at the VGAs. But
God, that looks like it'll be fun.
I hope so. I mean, it's Respawn, or not Respawn. Rocksteady. My bad.
Yeah. I am excited. Which we've talked about that before, and I think we mentioned it was remember they were shitting one crapper out, aka Gotham Knights, which turned out to be a crapper. And then they're making a good one.
Not surprised.
I'm
excited. But I thought it'll be
Squad.
All right, one's going to be average, and then the other's going to be good, and then Gotham Knights was terrible. And so it's oh, come on. We know it's going to be better, but it's taking away my faith.
I am also excited for Suicide Squad, You mentioned Jedi Survivor. So something that we haven't mentioned, Lies of P. Which is a Pinocchio Souls-like game.
Yeah, there's been so much Pinocchio stuff the last 2 years. What's going on?
I'm very excited. I'm very interested in this. It looks very good. And it's thankfully coming to Game Pass Day 1 because again, I would never pay for it. So that'll be cool. It might be pushed back, but I kind of doubt it. Arc 2, and I don't do the whole we've had Max on. Again, go listen to that episode. It's fantastic. He's talked about the public servers for Ark and private servers and all that stuff, and the whole mega tribes and all that stuff. I don't fuck with that. I just think Ark is actually a pretty solid not single player PvE survival crafting game, and I very much look forward to Ark 2 because it is going to be a good PvE survival crafting game. And then what will almost certainly, in my opinion, get pushed back. James, I know you're also extremely excited about this. We talked about this a little bit last week with the Game Awards. Remnant from the Ashes 2, which won't be called From the Ashes. It'll be called something else.
Probably. I hope it gets a cool subtitle.
So excited for that game. It is going to be so phenomenal.
I think
it'll probably get pushed back. It'll get pushed back almost certainly. But if that does come out, that might end up being my personal holy shit of the year. So we'll see. We'll come back to this in 1 year from today when we do this exact same, assuming we're still doing the podcast. I hope we're still doing the podcast. A year from today, we'll see. It'll be very interesting to compare what we're talking about today to a year from now. And actually maybe we should do that. Maybe a year from now, if we're still recording this, I'll listen to this episode preemptively and, kind of take cliff notes of what we talked about so we can kind of compare our expectations and stuff for what actually ended up happening in 2023. I think that'll be really interesting. So that's all I got for the most part. You don't have anything else?
Overall, like, I think it'll be a very solid year. Just like literally looking at this list, even with things potentially getting pushed back or, whatever. I think the current generation is finally like really getting its legs to where like they're not, we're starting to phase out the last gen, which is good for like development for, consumers, because we can actually get solid games that are not held back. It's starting. There's still a ton of PS4 and Xbox One on this list, which is crazy to me. But
and so there's a number of games that do not have official dates, but like a game that I expect to come out next year, and again, I could be wrong, is and this is pretty niche because this genre is pretty niche at this point, I feel like, but the new Forza Motorsport game.
Yeah.
Not Horizon. I love Horizon. It's a fantastic series. Everyone should go play Forza Horizon. It's just a fun arcade open world, racing game. But Forza Motorsport is the track. Yeah, this is the track racing, Forza title. And I expect it to come out next year because we had 2 Horizon games in a row without a motorsport game. And I expect it to come out next year, and I expect it to be Series X, Series S, PC, obviously, exclusive. I do not think the new Forza Motorsport will support the last gen of consoles. And so I think it'll come out next year. Who the fuck knows? But I think it will, and I think it will. Most racing games are. Almost every racing game is very technically impressive.
Yeah,
right.
For
because
sure.
Quite frankly, there's not much going on, quite frankly, right? So like they can, they have a lot of hardware to work with, and not a lot to do with it in terms of what's actually going on. And so they can tend to make things look really, really nice. And so I think the new Forza Motorsport game will probably come out next year, and it'll probably be Series X, S, PC exclusive, and it'll probably look phenomenal as a result of that. And so who knows? Again, that it doesn't even have a pretend date.
Yeah, to go with what you're saying, just to continue your hope with that. There's a franchise called Test Drive Unlimited, which I played the first and second one back on the 360, a billion years ago, and they're open world, racing games. Those specifically were the first racing games I played that were open world. And not only that, but you would actually drive to a dealership, and the game actually had a showroom floor kind of first person system where you would walk around and you could get into the cars and open the doors, and they were super detailed, and then you could just drive around and race. Or if you wanted to just drive around and drive the perimeter of the island and these cool super detailed cars, you could. And as a kid, that was fucking awesome. They have not had one since then, and the next Test Drive Unlimited game comes out next year, or at least on the docket for next year, and it also does not have a release date. And specifically to your point about them possibly cutting the last gen from Forza, the Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown last gen versions got cut when they pushed the release date to next year. So, I can see it. Yeah. As they just
which actually
pull resources.
Again, this is not next year. This is this is never going to happen. This is definitely not next year. Probably never. But this is just my personal hopes or whatever, talking a little bit about racing games now. I've mentioned I'm really interested to see how the Activision acquisition by Microsoft goes through. What I would love to see?
What?
I would love to see Blur 2. And I don't know if either of you have ever played Blur. No. James, have you?
I played a little bit of it a long time ago. It was good.
It's kind of like a cult following game.
Yeah.
It's definitely clearly they never made a sequel, right? So it wasn't
it's like a Split Second. Split Second is that way, where it was a really good racing game and it just didn't have the mass following. They both came out at the same time.
It is a realistic, quote unquote, right? It's real cars, kart racer, right? So if you take Mario Kart, it's just Mario Kart mixed with Forza or Gran Turismo I'm not even going to say the name because I would get it wrong, right? But it's if you take Mario Kart and you mix it with a quote-unquote real racing game with real cars, and it was so fucking fun. It was so good.
It looks like from a Google, it looks like
not
just
quite.
like Tamer Burnout.
It's a little less like Car Go Boom and more like car gets hit by a red shell.
I think Greg is underselling it a little bit. It literally is Mario Kart styled racing where there's item pickups and you like have that, but it's with real cars instead of Mario characters. Yeah, it's literally Mario Kart just in real life.
You're right. I did undersell it. Take Forza Motorsport, not Forza Horizon. Take Forza Motorsport. You are racing through a city on a track. And then put item pickups on there. That is a fucking red shell that you shoot at your opponent.
Yeah, it was so
literally
good. Mario Kart. It was good. It was good.
And so that, I believe, Activision owns the IP for that. And I actually, like, if they did some, like, weird Forza Blur, like, hybrid game thing, oh my, I would be so happy. Like, literally, if they made Blur 2 using, like, the Forza engine after the acquisition, like, I would die so happy. I would be so ecstatic if that game.
I just think it would be hard to time things well to make that work, because like there's only 17 other people who'd be playing the game, and you'd have to all be on at the same time to fill a lobby, and so you'd have to like coordinate together. And I think that would be challenging.
There are so I was thinking to myself, I was like, you know what Game Pass needs? Game Pass needs a kart racer, right? Like, the big game on the Switch.
The reason it'll happen is not necessarily because it's a bad game. It's just people have tried so many times to recreate the success that Mario Kart has had, and nobody has succeeded besides that one Donkey Kong game.
That's the thing is, I was looking through
Crash Bandicoot, excuse me.
Yeah, CTR. Yeah, I was looking through the holiday sale. There are a stupid number of kart racers
that you've never heard of.
Where, like, but they have to. There's so many. They have to be making money, or there wouldn't be this many.
Or they're just so cheap to make. That's the thing. Like
that's probably what it is. Like you said,
racing games have really no requirements for performance. It is a set track. The player can't exit it. You're only looking at one model, and you can just kind of simulate the surroundings to make it look like a level. Like, you don't need any of it. Like, they're so... Yeah. I'm not going to say they're easy to make, because I don't know how to make anything, but they can be hard.
There's not many complex design decisions.
There's literally no moving parts.
Yeah, there's like Crash Racing, like you said. There's fucking Garfield Racing. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
And then there's obviously like it's SpongeBob one. Like there's actually a ridiculous number of kart racers, and like I want one of them to be on Game Pass. And then I'm like, and then I look at the whatever, and I think about Blur, and I loved Blur when I played it on a 360 as a kid. And yeah, I want them to make Blur 2 once the acquisition goes through with the Forza engine, and I want that shit to be on Game Pass. And oh my God, I would be so happy. I would be so happy. Please make it happen, Papa Spencer. Please make it happen. For those who don't know, Phil Spencer is the VP or whatever of gaming at Microsoft. Papa Spencer, make it happen. Anyways, that's all I got. Blur 2, let's go, baby! So on that absolutely ridiculous note, I think we can probably wrap up, unless either of you have something else to add, or podcast, life, or game related, anything.
I don't think so. I just hope everybody had a good holiday season. Yeah.
All right. Well, catch us in the new year, baby. Let's go. Jetpack swords. See you, everybody. Thank you for listening to this. Bye.